Good evening, everybody, and
Absolutely.
welcome to the film discussion on The Last Tree by Shola Amoo. So this film was hosted by the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival this year. It took a different format as we're all home due to the pandemic. So things are a little different, but we were able to view it online together as a group. So we still got to share in the experience of that film. So tonight it's being hosted by the Gifted Creative Company. It is a budding company that builds and hosts websites for creatives. We also are endeavoring into building products that benefit creatives in other ways. And as the future unfolds, you'll see more and more of those projects. So we've decided to do this film discussion because as we're home, we need to still put art, film, put creativity in front of people so that they can consume it, so that they can enjoy it, so that they can be enriched by the creativity that we have to offer as professionals. So we have to continue to push that mentality, push that vibe to everybody. So that's really therefore. So without further ado, I would like to invite my co-people, my team, my buddies, the people who stay up late at nights trying to make things work. Because as a creative company, for those of you who are creatives, that's what gets done at the weirdest hours. Without further ado, I would like to invite first Andre Isidore to give a little himself.
Hi guys. Good evening. Good evening. Andrew Isidore. I am, for all intents and purposes, the financial head behind the gifted company. I help with budgeting, organizing events partially, along with our colleague Renelle here, and just all around advice beyond that and making sure everything runs smoothly from the back end as well as the front. Um, I decided to try to have this Q&A just to create more interaction on a different line of conversation regarding the creative industry and what's happening, especially because of this COVID period where a lot of it would be on a lull. I felt like this would be more interactive and push interest in the creative industry forward and be better for all in general. Um, with that said, I would invite the co-host Renelle Wilson to give a little introduction about herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Renelle Wilson. I'm a writer and stylist, but here at Gifted, I wear the hat of communication specialist. So I assist them with all their communications in terms of social media, um, content creation, that type of thing. And I was really happy to be a part of this project because as a creative, I really hope to see the industry being developed and moving forward and really helping to assist and support creatives in doing what they do and being able to get their work out there and to get paid and compensated in a timely and appropriate manner. So that was really, I just really happy about that. And I'm really looking forward to this film discussion. I love movies, I love literary analysis, all that type of thing. So I'm really looking forward to having this really intense discussion with these industry specialists.
All right, awesome. Good. So, not last or least, or however you may interpret it as, my name is Rhion Sealey, if I have not mentioned that before. I am the creative director, the dream in the middle of the night that gave this thing some birth. I am a music teacher by profession, first and foremost. I'm also a private music tutor, And well, as of, let's say, October 2019, I am a web developer. So that is my hat in this whole thing. So I am one of the guys, because we have a few guys behind the scenes as well. I'm one of the guys that kind of makes the front end happen in terms of not to sound too technical. What you see when you load that web page, basically. So let us move on to the more special people because all of us are special here. Yeah. So I would like to invite our special guests. Yeah. First off, I want to go with Saul Ramlal. Have it.
Hi everyone, I'm Saul Ramlal. By day, I am a geoscientist and wildlife photographer. By night, I moonlight as an actor, voiceover actor, and a budding stuntman apparently. Um, I got my start in New Play Festival a couple of years back. Since then, I've done a few productions, most recently Mind Your Business, and Positive and Still Here. Um, I've also done a lot of voiceover work and a lot of ads. So if you hear this voice and then you hear it on your radio, don't be spooked. I'm not following you around. It's just I've actually done ads and more than a few ads, and they're out there somewhere. I don't actually listen to the radio, so I don't know. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right. Thank you very much. Man. Thank you very much. Okay. We move along to Mr. Rhion Kendall.
Hi, good day everyone. My name is Rhion Kendall and I am a filmmaker slash director within the film industry. So I have just recently graduated actually from the University of the West Indies. I have a degree in both film production and film studies. So in terms of my backstory, I have only done one film per se, which is actually in the TTFF right now called Get Free. I was the cinematographer on that project. And pertaining my why I would be driven to do this, I've always been a narrative person, so I always love stories, and it depends on all kind of mediums that I love. I love literature, I love films, and I love games because it have games that have beautiful narrative stories in it. So that's where I say my passion for telling stories come from. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. And we have Stephanie Smith.
Hi everyone. Stephanie, better known as Bits. I am an accountant by day, and slash actor, dancer, writer, spoken word poet, craft person, basically a person of many trades within the art form, excepting mostly music. So
I'm waiting for that. Waiting to look you up.
I don't think I'll get both. I don't think I can take both for lessons. Um, I love the arts. I've been in the arts for my entire life, more or less my entire life. I started from primary school and then on into secondary school under the guidance of Mrs. Constance. Um, so I've been in the arts. I love the arts. I really saw this as a venture to push the arts more in terms of just having it there. So building the industry and adding to as an individual development in relation to the arts and get to be out there.
Cool.
Marvelous. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Jesus. Thank you very much. So we have to get into the whole reason why we're here, which is the film. So I will start off by reading a short book. Here goes, right? Let's test out my narrative. Only acted in 3 plays so far. Yeah, you may or may not have seen me, but yeah, I have a little stage thing. So. Anyway, let's go. So we are reviewing The Last Tree, directed by Shola Amoo. It follows the story of Femi, who is played by Samuel Adu. I am butchering now.
Adewunmi, is it?
Thank you. That's so awesome. Right. So it follows the story of Femi, a British boy of Nigerian heritage who, after a happy childhood in rural Lincolnshire, moves to inner London to live with his mom. Struggling with the unfamiliar culture and values of his new environment, Teenage Femi has to figure out which path to adulthood he wants to take and what it means to be a young black man in London. So this production was brought on by the British Film Institute, Prodigal Film and TV in association with Hartley Media, Privateer Pictures. So just let that marinate a little bit. Understand what we're about to get into. You could probably look at your cheat sheet if trying to remember what the movie was about.
You assume bold of you to assume that I only have one.
All right. So the questions we will go through, I will allow everybody to input. We'll give it as natural or flow as possible. Indicate if you need me to repeat and so on, but I will try to enunciate as clearly as possible. So firstly, the most obvious question is, after watching the film, what's the first word that comes to mind?
You know what? I'm gonna cheat here a little bit.
All right.
I'm gonna
Okay,
try
no
using two
problem.
words instead of one, and and it's
Is
funny. We're actually just joking about this, but existential dread, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. The whole looking at the movie, the whole gist of it for me was Femi trying to figure out himself, who he was in these different contexts as life progressed for him. I mean, he had a very stable, let's say, sphere or bubble when he was in the country in Lincolnshire, and then he gets pulled into London, and then fast forward to when he's a teenager and he's still trying to figure himself out. And in trying to do that, it's impacting all the relationships around him, especially the relationship that he has with his mother. It's just one big long commentary on who am I in the mess that in the mess that I'm placed in, and how do I be myself, but at the same time exist in this space. And it was slightly depressing because it's something I think everyone struggles with. And it's the film did a really good job of putting that to screen.
right. So just like most creatives, we tend not to follow rules because we did say what the first word entire essay. It was beautiful.
I'm a rebel.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Most of us here, we're here because we don't, fit into boxes. So by all means.
I see Ryan has his hand up.
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know how the system was. If it's raise your hand first and all that. But
Oh, no. It's free as long as you hear radio silence. You go on.
Okay, sure, not a problem. So, coherent to the rules, my one word to call this film, I would say, ironically grounded. No, ironically is not the word. Grounded is the word I'm talking about. Because when I was watching the film, it felt real to me, and it didn't felt like the drama was over dramatized or too unrealistic where this situation can't happen to just one person. It felt just real enough where you could have felt like you could have been in this situation, or your family or friend could have been in this situation, and it really brings in the audience to really relate with the character and his lifestyle, his situation. And as sorry, I forget your name. As my cohort rightfully said, is about the existential crisis. And actually, if you watch the title, if you try to break down the title of the last three, when I tried to break it down, I really related to as the roots from who you are, where you come from. So that's what Femi was trying to do. He's trying to figure out like, who am I, where am I really from? Because he is obviously from Nigerian descent, and but he has a family and a life in London, England, with his when he was staying with his not his godparent, with his
foster mom.
Right, his foster mom. And when he had to move back with his real mom, he was conflicted, and actually had a scene where with the younger Femi and he was walking across the park and it had a cut tree. So it's like his whole life just cuts and he just don't know what's going on, who he is or what he gonna be. So to me that's what the word grounded for this film means.
I really like that interpretation, Ryan. I find that like it's really insightful, like how you picked up that with the tree. Because I was like sitting down, I was really trying to figure out like the last tree. Is the tree metaphor really like fitting in here? But I felt like you explained it so beautifully, and you really came home like it's really about the roots. I really like that.
Thanks. And especially as people like to refer to Africa as the tree of life, as the roots of where everybody come from,
Roots
So
of civilization. Yeah.
yeah, so that's also a next thing you
Reading
can
up.
look at. Yeah.
You just had to hit that one out the ballpark.
Sorry. You see, this is a student, now graduated student.
So I'm gonna hyphen my word. Self-discovery.
Yes, another rebel.
Uh, in relation, jumping a bit in terms of tree, I actually played on the word tree. I understood the concept of tree being the roots, but I took it back. I took a different approach in the number tree because if you look at it, he had three families.
Wow.
The first family was his stepmother. Well, I could be wrong. Could have been his mom, but in relation to where the storyline came from, it was his foster mom, sorry, then his mom, and then actually realizing that his father is alive and well. In addition to that, his father has three children, which is him and two others. But in the essence of how fell into the play is that he was the last one to be acknowledged. So he was born first, but he has to be
Okay,
the last
okay.
one to be acknowledged. So
Wow.
I found Tree to play a lot of different elements in it, and it actually played on the number tree as well as the roots of finding who you are, because there are a lot of times that from coming to from a foster parent to going into living with someone who is a biological mother and not having that kind of connection, because you'd see it, the connection was really a strained one, and it was different from what he would have been accustomed to. And it wasn't like a sit down and get to know me. It was like, this is how the rules are, this is what is going to happen, without even teaching him or trying to understand whether he knew what to do or not. So it left him in a kind of position of having to decide and cipher within himself how to approach this life. And then you saw the normal thing of um, teenagers getting into dance, then coming to an understanding of, okay, this is what my mother went through, and the accepting what happened, and then respecting what happened, because you see in the scene after he met his father, he actually hugged his mother, despite everything that he would have been through with his mother. You saw him embrace his mom with the appreciation that she went through these things, and she was able to still take him back or support him.
Wow, I like that. I really like the three aspect and like the how he is like the last one to be acknowledged. I really like that take. I just love the different perspectives and the different viewpoints that everybody's bringing to the table. I love it.
Ryan's hand is up.
Oh no, that was before. Sorry, I had to put it on.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Back to you, Wayne.
I don't know if anybody
Right.
else wanted to weigh in on that question. I don't know.
I think they covered it pretty well.
Hmm?
No, I think they covered it pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that's good.
You want me to
So,
move to the next question?
yeah, sure.
All right. So, what are some of the key themes that you guys would have picked up from the movie, and like how do you feel like they were explored?
Uh,
And who wants to begin? I'll have to
oh,
call on one of you.
oh no, this is turning into an online class. I don't like this. I don't like this.
We have to
Just
do hands
finish
up,
off. I
hands
can't
up.
drink from a water bottle kind of thing. No drinking in
Saul,
glass.
Saul, since you thought you spoke first, let's start with you.
Yeah, so because I was gonna jump ahead of the student and the writer to give my layman's answer to that question. So two things jumped out to me in the movie. The first thing I think we kind of already touched on was identity,
Mhm.
especially for Femi, or more specifically, identity lost and regained, because he's been plucked out from this idyllic little life that he had, thrown into London. He has to figure that out, and with varying degrees of success. And then, his identity is further colored or given another shade when he meets his father. So there's that piece of it which we also touched on. But it's also, I think, the cost of, I think, not the cost of freedom, but the cost of living life the way you want, or living life according to what you're hoping for. So for example, the mother was working, trying to build a better life for herself and her son, but the trade-off for that was, of course, strained relationship with Femi. She's now a complete stranger, and it takes a long time for them to reconcile in any kind of way. Um, Femi, throughout, especially his teenage years, is trying to live life the way he wants to after being plucked out of the life that he had and he liked. And the trade-off to that is that it impacts the relationship with his mother and his teachers and everyone else around him. And then you further color that with him trying to live life as himself within the social dynamics of London. Which, side note, the film did a really good job, I think, of pointing to so many different things, from like colorism. It touched on all these different things, and all these things are things that he had to contend with. And the trade-off that he constantly finds himself making is, like, okay, I'm going to be me, or I'm going to try to be me and try to be happy, but then I'm going to contend with the damn thing. Yeah, that's me.
I don't mind if I jump in here. So,
Sure, jump in.
but yeah, as he was saying, the biggest theme would have been identity, but I would also like to add in traditionalism and heritage. So, when Femi got back with his mother, like I thought the mother had a lot of bright colors, a lot of florals. So to me, that was like the director showing you the differences between the other people and the mother, because the mother strong with her roots, like her heritage. And even when in the scene when she's cleaning, she was singing her native songs, her native language. And then when she was trying to get Femi now to behave like a traditional Nigerian boy, clean the floor, if you do nothing again, beats. If you disrespect him again, beats, those different, those different kind of traditions. And oh yeah, you want to say something?
No, I'm glad that you pointed out the singing, because the singing actually woke him up out of sleep.
Yes.
So it was
did.
like,
Oh, I think it might
We
be.
lost you for a moment there.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so he didn't even have the chance to enjoy his sleep or enjoy whatever he was dreaming of. His traditional mother singing promptly pulled him out of that and into reality. It literally woke him up. And
Mhm.
that's actually the last music that you hear for a while. Like, even when there was a point where he like ran off, all you heard was like this undertone of dread. There was no music.
Correct.
And
Yes.
then the next time music really comes back is when he and his two friends are, I think, shoplifting a store.
Shoplifting. Yes.
Between those
Right.
2 points, there wasn't really anything in the way of music. So
It
I thought
was
that was
that, and
interesting.
when he got high.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So the director really chose wisely about his choice of songs and when to play these songs, which also relates back to the grounded parts. Like they really tried to make it as real and relatable as possible then, per se. And I also wanted to add towards the talk of the colorism and classism as well. Because when I did my research, the place that it was in was the Aylesbury estate. That's where the mother and family end up living in. So that is South London. So as I was talking about before, they where I used to live with the foster mother was in Northern London, where the fields, and that's where majority was white people, right? And then now as it came South London, that's where majority of people, blacks, or also people who are below the mid range class, right? The middle class. So that's where the housing. And if you look at some of the notes, they have it presented as a wonderful place, a nice place to come through and whatever. But in the film, it showed a different side of that, where the graffiti, the lights knock out, and I think it was a rat in the elevator or something when they was going in. So it's like that's a different contrast that they try to show between what media portrays and to what actually is happening within these spaces. So that was a bit I wanted to add in. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. In respect to the sound thing, I also like found that the music, how it was really kind of more like an undertone, as Saul said. It kind of added to like a kind of feeling of isolation and kind of like really mirrored how Femi was kind of feeling, feeling very alone and kind of very in a kind of negative place.
That
But
Basically,
certainly,
combined with the camera work.
basically in a
yes,
bubble by himself.
Yeah, that
yes,
combined with the camera work just really had you feeling it was just him against the entire world. And that
mm,
kid, that guy Sam can really carry a scene, boy. Even the kid,
mm,
uh, I don't know
the
what
younger
your
version of him, yeah,
yes, that kid could
the
carry a scene by
emotion,
him. That is so hard to do.
true. Stephanie, anything you want to add?
Just in relation to self-actualization and acceptance, it all ties into the classism, the identity, and as well as family issues because these are issues that we also experience here in Trinidad and most likely basically everywhere. It's something that not everyone is comfortable speaking about, especially when you live
True.
with a foster parent and then move back in with your biological parent. It's a change in the way you see yourself as well as how you deal with certain things because the concept of your parent giving you up and coming back for you is kind of a pull on a child's mind. And even though it doesn't we say that children don't know what they're talking about. No, they actually have an in-depth feeling, and you would see with the isolation scenes that literally carries the idea and the ideal idea of how the child felt. And even as he grew older, you still saw where there were flashbacks that carried him into that isolated mode. So it has a lot to do with family issues and acceptance because he had to accept a lot of different things, even though going back to his foster mom and asking her why did she say yes when it was actually no. So is giving yourself comfort in knowing or understanding what happened, why it happened, and being able to accept as family, as everything in the real life that happens, as well as understanding the family disputes and how they affect a child, even though they may not think that it affects children.
Correct.
Okay, awesome.
No, Wayne, you go ahead. I'm just gonna turn it over back to you.
No problem. So I really like the insights so far. It's quite mind opening. What I would want to add on is that it's very portable, as Stephanie just alluded to. It's very portable to the Caribbean. About some have a little bit of pieces here and there that we could relate to, either directly or indirectly. And I can't wait to explore some of these other questions because I have a lot more to say. But without further ado, let's go. So you guys touched on it, especially Saul, but I would like to go on. What do you guys think about the casting? So you guys already touched a little bit on it, but in particular, what did you guys think about the casting? Did they nail it? You know?
Well, for me, I find casting was just right, like on the spot, good. Because as my next cohort was saying, the little boy was real good at acting. I was like, wow, you
Mm-hmm.
know how it is to act that good and show them emotions without actually saying or doing much. That's like really difficult for even most people, adults and so on. And
Yep.
even the older version of Femi, he really did a good portrayal of showing his emotions without making it what's the word I'm looking for? To acting like sorry.
Yes. Like overdone.
Right,
Didn't seem
He's
overdone,
not
scripted.
doing.
right.
He just is. Yeah,
Correct.
he's not doing.
So
He just is.
yeah, right, correct. So I
Mhm.
found everybody did their part very well. The only one person I had a gripe with was the moms. Sad to say. Like I don't know if anyone else felt the same way. Is like everybody else felt like they was doing their role, but the moms just felt like she was trying her best to act. She acted well in most of these scenes that where she teared up and she was emotional. Like those scenes, I give her props for. But some of the other scenes, it just felt like she was just trying to act. Then, like if you understand, I don't know how to
I
explain it.
understand what you mean. Like I feel like I kind of get what you're saying, but to an
So
extent,
yeah.
I'm not sure how to like really read it because to an extent it might just be like a kind of an outgrowth of the very dramatic kind of Nigerianness, perhaps
Mm,
that may be coming out in it. I'm not sure, but I understand where your concerns may be in that respect.
mm-hmm.
I
So
think I could probably
go ahead,
add.
go ahead.
Sorry,
Yes,
Ronald, you
Stephanie?
can go ahead.
No,
No,
I was
right
just
second.
good.
Sorry.
I think I could probably add to Ryan's statement. It's the difference with acting on stage versus screenplay. It's very very different, like extremely different. And I think that what could have contributed to the mother's approach, because at points in time I felt like she was just reciting lines, and it kind of gave me a headache at a point where I was just um, no, it sounded like just recital of lines, because even I know, like, there are sometimes, well, being honest, there are sometimes that I just listen to a
Yeah.
line and know that the line will come back to bite me. So there were some
Yeah.
times where the scene was going and the line, it felt like she wasn't truly in character to deliver, because what
Okay.
happens is that film picks up every single thing on your face and you have to be very very particular because you can't overdo. Whereas what you do on stage, you have to be very concise and kind of keep it mellow. So at points in
Yeah.
time, I think probably she may be a stage actor, but in terms of getting into that character for the film piece, it sounded like she was just sometimes at reciting. There were some points that
Yeah.
she just said, "Nah, I ain't getting this. Let me take a break." So, but outside of that, um, I I didn't have an issue with any of the characters more or less. I really enjoyed the small version. He captured it like extremely well to be able to keep those emotions flowing. Um, I really wanted to like get some in-depth understanding of what techniques they would have used. If it's tapping into emotions that were already there, or in terms of how did they ground that character. So I'm really just interested in terms of understanding the character development process behind those particular actors. So outside of that, I was comfortable with the casting.
Okay.
The mother worked for me, and I'll tell you why. It worked for me because one, because the film is literally from Femi's perspective. For a long stretch of it, she's just a fundamentally unlikable character. As far as you're concerned, she's just this me. She's just pick you up, drop you into this new place, and and then the things that she says may come off as the actor saying it sounds like she's not very invested in the lines, but the character sounds disingenuous. And it works when you're considering from Femi's perspective, where you're a stranger to me, I'm not going to take you seriously. So it worked for me in
That's
that regard.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's
she's
interesting.
for a long stretch of time she's just unlikable until you get to understand a bit more, and she's disingenuous. Or she appears to be disingenuous. And from
See,
Femi's perspective, it's like,
Yeah.
it's just adding to the fact that this is not someone I particularly want to be around. But I'm
So the
just thrust into the circumstance and I just have to deal.
see now
so the
That's
motivation
messed up.
kind
before
of add
Saul
to it.
went, yeah, before Saul went, I was gonna say that I've heard many times that for a writer, it's difficult to get out of that writing headspace to fully engross himself in acting piece. And from her background, she's also a writer. So I was gonna say after Stephanie that maybe that may have that may have been what we saw in her acting. In that, yeah, she's a good actor, but her headspace is probably so engrossed in the writing aspect that it's hard to fully engross herself in to lose herself in the character then, because she's always coming back to the words as opposed to the emotion. But then when Saul went and said what he said, I now have to rethink that, because when you look at it from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. and it flows with the whole of the film as well.
Yeah,
Sure.
Saul really made a great point there. In terms of casting, like I think it was generally well cast. The one thing I felt like was the gang leader person. He somehow he didn't really have the gang leader vibe to me. He didn't feel gang to me. Like he wasn't gang. Like he didn't really have that vibe. But I mean, honestly, I found that like Femi, Sam played Femi so well. Like the anger, the sullenness, like that. Like I've seen people in real life, especially like a lot of like young men in Trinidad and Tobago who do like probably have similar backgrounds to him. I've seen them, and you see that in their eyes. You see this a kind of a anger, a hurt that just kind of always comes through in their face. And like I found that was like brilliantly portrayed, both when he was young and as an older teenager.
Yeah.
Renelle, from what you said about the gang leader, the actor Demi, I think because there was a scene after they got back from the scuffle in front of the store where he actually took them to his house and he saw he had a
Mm-hmm.
little daughter. And he said that you
Mm-hmm.
guys are the only two people who know about this. I think what you were getting is the how to put it, the actual character of the person because he isn't a hardcore gangster. He's a family man who is just doing what he has to do to
Mm-hmm.
see about his family. And you
Mm-hmm.
see that when he takes them to the house, you see the daughter in the house playing, and
Mm-hmm.
they show you that soft side of him. And you even see it when he meets up Femi after. Later on in the film, I won't get into why or how, but he meets him up after, and you still feel that kind of caring nature from him towards Femi, even though he does what he has to do at that point in time to Femi for going against, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they try to play it off as he's just a next one, we gotta get rid of him, I still got a kind of caring vibe from him between the two of them. So
So you
that
feel the Kieran vibe was an intentional choice as opposed to him just being like they picked like a very chill guy to
yeah,
do
but that's what I got. Yeah.
it.
Was
Yeah.
there, can I ask, I honestly can't remember, so I'm asking, and I'm just kind of piggybacking off of what you just said. Um, was there a common thread between the gangster and Femi and his friends in that in their heritage? Because that might explain it.
I'm not sure. I don't know
That's
if
why
it was ever
that's why I'm
really
asking,
addressed.
because
Nah,
it
I
could.
don't. I didn't catch that in the film itself. I don't think they explored that bit in the film, so I
I
can't really say.
I
I
I
won't say
did.
directly, but I would say indirectly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as they all pulling into the Black Lives Matter. Um, it's more of a genuine kind of realization that we belong to the same people. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
really, it may not be underlying heritage, but the underlying acceptance of the skin color and that particular sphere of where they live.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to colorism as well.
Yep. So anybody else has anything to add there? Really? Oh well, we'll move right along to the next topic of discussion, which is um which character that like you connected with most and like why.
Take it away.
Answer is gonna be easy for me. It's gonna be Femi. I'm sorry. The movie steers you in that direction.
Yeah.
I empathize with his constant struggle of growing up and then trying to figure out who you are in the world. There's no other place for me to sit there. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, giving the stereotypical answer.
But if
Well, oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying like if it is that everybody is so I don't know if that is for everybody or if anybody else has things, but I mean generally the whole narrative kind of like this is the Femi show, you know, so everything is about Femi. So I don't know if you have, if it is that Femi is your main character, you could say that Femi may be the main character. Who's the secondary character perhaps that you relate to
Yeah,
on
having said what I just said, I empathize with the mother
the
because I can understand this idea of doing what you think is needs to be done or making the necessary sacrifices for it to go later on, and then having things not turn out quite the way you want them to.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is kind of her subplot. Is like she's doing all of this. She's doing all this, for example, for her son to have a better life, but she and her son have a green relationship, and so nothing really pans out the way that she wanted it to.
Yeah.
Which is something that I get it.
Ooh, well, as you say, like the main person that you really focused on 100% was Femi. But if I was to say to relate somebody, I would say would be the teacher. Like he was really a father figure then to Femi, who didn't really have no father figures growing up, and he also like a simple man who just wanted to get his life in order, get other people's lives in order. Like that's why he was he became a teacher because he didn't want the other youths growing up to become the gangs and run around different thing and all kind of different stuff. So that's why I say I would relate to him because he more tries to help out people rather than try to just shrug them off then because you know most teachers can just shrug off the students like he just a bad apple, he gonna throw his life away and not gonna bother with he, but he actually goes, if he went to the mother house and thing to talk to them and help guide them to a different direction. So that's the one character I would say I could most relate to.
Mm.
I definitely agree there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I re
Go ahead.
the teachers. Well, I related to three characters, particularly. All of them touched on actually. Femi, particularly because of what he had to go through and having it bottled up inside, not having any understanding or reason as to why it happened, for a period of time until he grew older, which kind of leaves a built-in trauma as you grow older. So it leaves you wondering if you're good enough, especially for someone coming from a foster parent, into going back with your biological parent. Um, the teacher, because the teacher was a sense of comfort, even though you have teachers where they'll give you like real headache, for want of a better saying, but it's actually more of a push that they're trying to push you into the right direction. So you saw a lot of compassion coming out from the teacher, especially a lot of understanding, because not everyone would have been able to embrace Femi at that point in time when he was letting go of his emotions, because at that point in time that was his breaking point. That was the point where he was tired, he was upset, everything was crashing down, and he was really ready to fight anybody that come at him. And for a teacher to be able to understand a student and understand that the pain that they're going through and be able to embrace him as opposed to call the police for him, I was able to relate to that, particularly. And then, well, the mother understanding that you're giving up your child and then come back for your child, it's a tough situation. So yeah.
Yeah. So, I related, strangely enough, to the teacher. Not so strange, I guess, because I am a teacher. But
Show of hands, who was
honestly, though,
surprised? Who was
yeah,
surprised?
I guess. Honestly, though, as a teacher working in schools, a lot of people, especially in this country, give teachers a really hard time because they don't realize that when the child is not at home, the another side usually comes out in school. I mean, even my students, when you leave home, is usually a different person that reaches on school compound. And so some of us, we had a comfortable childhood. We had a childhood that was protected from a lot of the stuff that went on in this movie. But the scene that really affected me was when the teachers showed up at the house. Because a lot of teachers, they tend to say that we're not willing to do that. And that is what the job really takes. If you really want to be successful, it's actually outside of the classroom that you have to reach the kids. So for me, him taking that stance and going and meeting the problem where it is instead of staying in classroom and then calling the parents for these parents meetings that they really don't do anything because after that it's over. For him to take the initiative and go there, that for me, that was everything to me because it showed, well, hey, we are actually doing something, actually tackling this problem. It's easy to relate to for me as a young black man, like but definitely, definitely, the teacher kind of struck. Yeah, he kind of stuck with.
Mm.
Um, Anybody else has any inputs here? All right. So it's a segue, I suppose. Moving on to the sets, locations, and props. Well, you guys were so in depth earlier on that a lot of the questions were answered in little tidbits. I guess you can say, but yeah, you know. But the sets, location, and props. Now we had spoken about Lincolnshire and the comparison to the North and South London. Anybody who has had the opportunity to go, I mean, London is a very crazy place. First of all, it's like it's almost bigger than Trinidad, period. So the where we see the how do I say, where we see the disparity in the class and race and everything else, it's bottled up there, but it's like more concentrated because it's more metropolitan than an entire country. So it's kind of wild actually. So I really liked how they transitioned. So I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on it. Just to repeat, how did the sets, locations, and props contribute to the meaning of the film?
Well, in terms of the setting, like what I really found was interesting was that Femi had a very strong sense of belonging in the majority white rural countryside. I found that was kind of ironic that he had this very close bond with these people who were probably so much unlike him. And then in London, where you expect he is probably going to find more people who look like him, more people of Nigerian origin, he feels very much out of sorts, very fish out of water. And I found that was like a very, I like how it subverted your preconceived notions of what these places would be like and what his experiences as a black man or black boy in the case of his early childhood, what his experience would be like. It's very interesting.
Yeah, well, home is home, and one of the ways that they showed that contrast was lighting.
Mm.
When he first arrives to London, it's dark. It's muted with heavy shadows, and even when it's bright day, it's dark and grimy and somewhat cool as compared to Lincolnshire, which is always outside is always lit by this golden light, no matter what time of day it seems.
Yeah.
It's always like this afternoon, evening, golden
It,
hour
it doesn't
kind
have
of.
night there, no
even even
existential
even when
dread.
even when it was night, no existential dread. You're right, and even when it was night and they were inside the house was very warmly lit. When he
Mm.
was sitting with the foster mother, it's this very comfortable distance, and even though the focus was still on him, the way this maybe it's partly camera work as well. You never felt like he felt isolated.
Correct.
Versus, and you compare that lighting set in Lincolnshire to London, where it's always cold, it's always this kind of dark and gritty, and even in the middle of the day for some strange reason, because this is not home to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that very simple color grading was a great way of showing that what you know, showing that kind of fish out of water feeling that you were describing. As far as props goes, because props was also mentioned. One prop kind of stands out to me. That was the broom. Remember when she first gave him the broom and she was like,
Yeah.
"You're doing it wrong," and then when he puts it on, she cut his ass.
Yep.
The broom was a symbol of this is now your new life. This is a symbol of your
Mm.
new life. It's a symbol of um almost servitude, as opposed to the freedom that you had when you were back in the country. There's no more of that. Now you are here to do as you are bidden, versus free to live as you choose. And that was a symbol of that.
Yeah.
And even when he was a teenager, he picks it up to sweep, but he does it out of a sense of not duty, but he knows what happens if he doesn't. So it's
Mm.
almost this thing that tells you are free to choose to obey. And if you don't obey, you're gonna be end up on the wrong side with your mother, and it's gonna be a whole mess, as
Mm.
opposed to freedom, period, which was the life that he had.
Mhm.
Oof, I wish I knew what else to say, because, like, as you say before, everything else went deep in depth in the other conversations beforehand. But if you, I had one thing to talk about props, and that would be concerning the little electronic devices throughout the film. Because
Mm.
to me, it set the period without them stating what time period it was happening in. So, like, you
Right.
see Femi rocking the CD player with the headphones, and then
Yeah.
the Me Too, like, that's the biggest thing around. So it's like
Yeah.
it really sets that time period. That's why I was also trying to figure out if there was a life biography film, like a somewhat biography film of the director.
It's semi autobiographical.
Right. So that I found really impressive that it set the time period out actually stating the time period in that sense. And actually in the beginning of the film, as we was talking about the locations, it was like sorry, I'm bad with names. Lock
Lincolnshire.
Lincolnshire, right. Back in Lincolnshire where Femi was going to school. I don't know if you all saw the panels, the different colored panels.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't
So
remember.
that one caught my eye. I was like, okay, so trying to show the harmonization, the diversity. Like, although Femi was the only black kid in the classroom, it still felt homogeneous, like harmony
Mm.
together. It's like everybody was coming together nice, and it gives you a different story. Like, you know how everybody say, but when you're the only black person within a white majority white place, sometimes there's a lot of discrimination and thing. But he was actually as I think Wayne,
Yes,
I don't know if
yes.
that's the name I was saying correctly. He talked about how they treated him well, and he was really happy, and they really took him in like one on their own. And that, at least that, to me, with the colors, and especially when the children was walking in, I don't know if you all also saw that. They all had white shirts, and he was the only one wearing the black one when he walked in. And then, well, only then you saw the other children wearing the black vest.
Mm.
Right.
Mhm.
I didn't
So
notice that, but like that's an interesting point.
yeah.
Because
So
it focused on him only, and then you saw the others. Because it was like a kind of like, okay, is he wearing the wrong uniform?
correct.
And then
Yes.
thereafter,
Mm. Another thing, in addition to like Rion's point about the technology, I also like the point where he has in his headphones and he's listening to The Cure, and then he lies and he tells his friend he's listening to Tupac. I think that was really interesting, like, in terms of who he really is versus who he is trying to be amongst his friends, how he tries to fit into the society in which he finds himself.
Correct. Correct.
There's another identity moment right there. How much he's still struggling with who he is, to the point where he doesn't feel comfortable enough sharing that with the people around him. Because
And
he's not sure if he's accepting of it, far less anyone else.
yeah. And then you see how he just started to fall for girl because she was listening to the same kind of music he's listening to.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you just madly in love with this girl now.
And then there's the actual point of realization after he saves um his father figure from the scuffling from the shop. You see him walking back, and the camera work shows his world spinning around him, and you can feel from that he's now actually thinking. I'm not sure if it's the thought that life is short, but he's now starting to realize I can't continue living this lie. I need to be me.
Mhm.
I need to
Yeah.
accept my own feelings, my own emotions, my own reality in this life, and do what I need to do for me.
Mhm.
So.
Mm. Interesting
It
stuff.
Well, in relation, everybody touched on everything, so it was just our understanding that while there were props in all the other scenes, you really didn't see a prop that was significant in the first setting, which would have been with his foster mom. So
Hmm.
there was
Mm.
nothing tying into like something to hold on to
Mm.
from that that atmosphere. It was only the memories that you hold on to, whereas the broom signify a chain, for want of a better saying, where it trapped you
Yeah.
into knowing that this is where you are, this is the heritage that you belong to. If you don't follow the rules, you will get whipped. Um, and the headset and everything provided a different forum of enslavement, for want of a better saying, whereas that you're trapped within yourself. By
Mm.
extension, you're telling them not to listen to something, but within yourself, you are trapped. And the headset was your only way of escape from what is going
Mm.
on.
There is and you even said enslavement. It's like there's a real layered metaphor there for slavery if you go looking for it. I just started saying, okay,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
So they
This
take you from one place and then they
Yeah,
put
and
you
then
in another
they're
place.
holding you to that place really and truly, and they take you somewhere else, tell you this is the way it's going to be, and fend for yourself. Oh boy,
Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, okay.
The layers like an onion.
Oh yes. As you was talking about that, what actually stood out to me actually, which was the ending. I don't want to spoil the ending really, but when he went to see father and he saw where he lived and everything
Mm.
was just monotone, straight. I don't know if you all realize just how monotone with the colors of the
Mm-hmm.
gold, right? And then the ivory tusk. I don't know if you all know the significance of the ivory tusk.
You tell us the
No,
significance. You know
no.
the significance
I
because
mean, it
I
have
wait
lots
to
of
Oh, buddy, you can go for it.
things. The tusk, some of them symbolize tusk as power. Some symbolize it
Mm-hmm.
as health, wealth, all these different things because there's grindy tusk and there's use it in medicine and herbs. So
Yeah.
longevity.
Right.
And a lot of these quote unquote slave traders used to trade those as well when they was capturing the people and they would sell the ivory tusk as trophies. So when I was watching that scene, I was like, the father was like, he was trying to be like how the white people used to be then, just have everything then. The
Yeah.
ivory tusk, the gold, and the big pieces, these ginormous pieces that he shouldn't have any business having.
Yeah.
So it's like he tried to overcompensate what the quote unquote colonizers come and take from the
Yeah.
motherland then.
And then
Yeah.
even
And
as you mentioned that, there was a
Hmm.
point when when Femi had asked him something, his father said, your mother did not know how to submit.
Hmm.
yeah.
And that was a big reason why he left the mother and Femi,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
because they would not
Yeah.
submit to him, adding to
Hmm.
that whole
Yeah.
idea that he has to have full power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you mentioned about the ivory tusk, Ryan,
Hmm.
like you can also look at it as like a phallic symbol of like masculinity. So in
Right.
a
Okay.
sense, the father is
Hmm.
like a kind of hyper masculine presence, and like Femi's kind of looking at it, trying. It's kind of like him trying to discover his own masculinity. What does masculinity mean for him? Seeing his father, how his father would have been living, all of those things, him trying to just negotiate all of that with his own identity. So I mean, it's a good point you made.
Hmm.
Anybody else have anything to say about the props and so on? Going once, going twice. So in terms of, I know we might have touched on this a bit before, of course, but like, how did you guys feel that the editing contributed to the meaning and the quality of the film?
I love the editing. For me, I felt it to be smooth compared to some of the films that you watch. You actually see when they merge the scenes, which is torturous. Um, so for this one, um, I didn't see much in terms of things that were delayed because they kind of had a transition where it was either into a flashback or a dull moment where they kind of merged it nicely. So for me,
Mm.
I found the editing to be really really neat.
Mhm.
And editing takes a lot of time, so I respected that element of it, as well as the film in terms of the video clippings, particularly. I like
No,
the
bloody what? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
video clippings, the
Okay.
angles in terms of to be able to merge and create a proper film. I like the angles that they use for capturing certain scenes. So I was happy with the film and the editing.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think I could stop singing the praises of the cinematography either. And Ryan's probably going to do a much better job at this than I am. But there were a lot of, and this actually is testament to the quality of the actor that plays Femi. You don't trust long takes to an actor that can't do it. And even the kid, when something as simple as him walking out of the house and walking along the road, that long take, that and in which he's kind of processing, he's going through these emotions. You don't trust that to an actor that can't do it. And they trusted um the actors that played Femi to carry those bits, and it shows in the choices that they made with taking long takes in certain places versus in other places where they may choose to cut as they, as he's walking from point to point, for example. But Ryan's going to do a much better job of talking about that than I am.
I very well overestimating me there. But I just talk about the long take too, and I remember about the red lights. The red light was
Mm,
really
yeah.
significant. Even though we passed that question, the red light was really significant when because it only happened when he was meeting the drug dealer. That was the only
Mm-hmm.
time it happened. But anyway, past that one. In terms of the editing, it was actually really good. As everybody could agree, the cinematography is really, really, really good. And the long take, as we were saying, it really is a difficult thing to do because you have to plan out, you have to structure everything. Everybody have to do their parts exactly the right times. And as you were saying, you can't just trust that to any actor. The actor has to have it down because if you mess one thing up, that's back to square one. And if that long take, I think what the long take was about 7-10 minutes. So imagine you in your last minutes and you screw that up. Unless you have money to pay for somebody to fix that up, that'll be very difficult to patch that up, So the editing, my train of thought. So yeah, the editing was really, really well done. And the film actually does take a lot. I won't say a lot, but it does take aspects of, I don't know if you all know avant-garde. Avant-garde is basically art films.
Mm-hmm.
So experimental films. I don't know if you're more
Yeah.
right. So it was a lot of now sorry, not a lot, but there was experimentation. So as
Right.
sorry, as Alea no, as Stephanie, as she was saying, with the transitions when Femi was going from the young boy to teenager, it was I think right, the sunset. I don't know if you all saw that. It was flashing between the sunrise and Femi and the older Femi. I don't know if you all saw that part.
I'm not sure.
No,
Not sure I recall
Yeah.
which.
Yeah.
that was in the quarter, first quarter when Femi was transitioning to the older Femi, and then in the ending too, they had it in the ending where it's going from the older Femi
Right.
to younger Femi. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in between those edits, it had the sunrise. I don't know if you all catch the sunrise.
Yeah, I didn't notice how the sunlight like yeah.
Yeah, it's very faded out, but it was right there. So like I say, the director really knew what he wanted to portray and show, and also goes into the theme of the Africa and the transitioning to a new era, transitioning to a new state.
Yeah.
And then the next part, which I did enjoy for the editing, which was when he got high. Everything was just bright. It felt a bit slowish, but still moving in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And like the long take where they was in the schoolyard. That's one because it went from him chewing down the boy and then quote unquote getting the girl in the end, and then only to realize
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't actually get the girl and he was just having this high time now. So all that was actually done in, was it done in real time? I think they would have done it in real time and just play it off as if it was two separate occasions.
Mm.
So which
Yeah, I
I
think
find was really good.
the editing of that part was really kind of confused me honestly because it wasn't sure if like this was like a dream sequence or if it was real life. Like, did he kiss her? What happened? And it was very kind of
uh,
disorienting for me. So I feel
well,
like that was,
to that,
I
that
don't
would be partly experimentals. That experimentals does that say it's meant to do that. That the director wanted to do that to you. Like
I
that's the
think,
whole purpose to say, was it real? Did this really happen?
and he want.
I
I
Yeah,
don't
think
really
he.
go out of place though.
I
Like
think
just
he
as
wanted that because I think that's exactly how Femi saw it. As like Femi thought
yeah,
that it happened until he realized that it didn't, and he was just standing there
like
speechless.
mm,
I think that's
yeah.
exactly what he wanted as well too.
And
yeah.
a next thing would which is really really difficult for editing or when you're doing editing to get that sequence, that experimental sequence into reality to come back exactly in the right place to continue. It had to be like a spot on. So I respect the editing positioning for that because those things tend to when you do flash forwards like those to come back to the original state. Sometimes there's always like a difference in
Continuity
terms
errors.
of in terms of positioning of the actor or
Mm,
the sight or the lining. So it was really nice there. And one other thing is that the contrast, the consistency in the contrast when they between the light and dark and the shadow effects. Um, I found it to be consistent throughout where he had the gloomy period versus the light where when he was with his foster mom. So the contrast kind of kept itself in that realm, in that shadowy kind of gloomy kind of. Even though they had the red light, it was still a bit of a dark, gloomy kind of phase until
mm,
it where it needed to be light. Then you saw a kind of amber versus a light, a white finish kind of way, or a cleaner. I can't remember what the word is. Maybe Ryan can help me. A cleaner finish. So you had an amber in addition to a brighter, cleaner finish compared to the dull kind of like fog like effects, fog shadow effects.
I wish I could help you. It don't really have a clear cut way to say it. Well, at least it's not coming to my mind at the moment. So sorry.
No problem.
Mm,
Awesome.
That's what.
All right, so moving right along. So we talked quite a bit about the discussion coming up, so I'm not really sure we're going to wrap it in. But certainly, we made a lot of notes about the symbols and metaphors. Um,
mm.
I mean, you guys are so in depth. I'm not sure what
well,
you're gonna add to it, but
I,
I feel like so far you've blown my expectations away. So I feel like I
I
feel like
actually
I'm
have
about
one
to
thing to add if anything.
Yay!
I actually have one thing to add if you're one.
by all means,
So,
please.
Yeah.
in the beginning of the film, when the moms came to see the son, I don't know if you realize when they was in the field,
Mm,
when the moms was in the field with the son, and they
Mm,
had the distance between them. So I don't know
I
if you
wasn't
all
sure.
saw that. If like,
I
ooh, you already don't remember that one. Is in the beginning,
that was like
beginning.
I feel like you have a
Did you not?
photographic
But
memory,
it done that.
because you remember in
Yeah.
some detail from that movie. Yeah?
No,
Sorry.
no.
You have the eye. You have the eye.
Sad. Like I
Yeah.
actually, that's why I like to
Thing.
watch movies once in a. I don't like to watch it twice, only if I really like it.
You have to get everything in that one thing.
was
Yeah.
was it when they went outside before she spoke to the lady to his stepmom foster mom about taking him away?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was when they
Yeah,
was in the field.
yeah.
Cause they had the distance, and then I like the camera work. I won't call it edit. I'll call it the cinematography work, where they focus on Femi, and then they rack focus onto the mother, but
Mm.
you saw the distance between them. So I would say that metaphor would have been their relationship, how how their relationship is right now. So
Yeah.
that's
That
probably one metaphor that we didn't talk about.
that
Yeah.
continued even into the when he was a teenager though. Like remember she comes home, he's after school, he's eating on the couch, she comes home. She stays on the other end of the couch.
Hmm. Yes.
Like
Yeah,
they
yeah, I
never
remember that.
bridge that distance. And
Yeah.
as anytime she tries to, he leaves. So
Hmm.
The only time
so
the distance
that
was actually
space is yeah.
the only time the distance was actually
Even
bridged is when he went to her.
Right.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, he
She
had to
did
make that choice for himself.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I actually had a scene. I can't remember if it was when he was a adult or when he was a child. No, I think that was when G Mother was singing. I think so. Where she was cleaning it. I don't know if you all remember the scene clearly, but there was one room where she was in and he was in the
And
next
what
room.
was in between?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. So
Yes. Yeah.
again, it showed the whole distance thing. So it's like he living with a stranger now. He don't know who this woman is. She just come up in life and take she away, you know? So it's
Mhm.
like it showed that dynamic then.
Yeah.
Even as you mentioned it now, even when she came in and sat in the room next to him and asked him if he was okay, the angling of the camera made it seem like if she was far away from him.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that was pretty
Yeah, the
cool.
camera angles were doing the most, you know,
Yeah.
but in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she was a stranger.
Hmm.
It was like,
Yeah.
who are you? Your phone, who else?
Mm.
But yeah, I
So,
would give. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say so that I give it props to the inspiration to as I was talking about the avant-garde or the experimentals.
Hmm.
So I would say he got a lot of inspiration from those because even some shots he did, the different angles he took, I would say that definitely took a lot of inspiration from experimentals because most traditional cinema, will quote unquote on that one, would
Yeah.
like stick to these standards. Like they only try to be experimental just to make it look cool and different, you know. But with this
Hmm.
director, he did it meaningfully. Then he didn't just do it just to make it look different, you know. He did it
Yeah.
with meaning and proper and purpose. Sorry.
Yeah. It really wasn't a very like traditional Hollywood style movie at all. Very
Mm,
much more art house kind of.
Indie director style, independent movie
correct.
type
Yes.
behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in the interest of time, we'll just be moving along to a couple of the later questions.
Okay.
Um, so, we wanted to just discuss in what ways the film could be relevant to the Caribbean experience.
I think Wayne touched on it really early. I think it's either Wayne or Andrew. One of the two of you touched on it really early, where they're very direct and indirect parallels between this movie and Caribbean Life.
Yeah.
Easiest example, the most direct example, is the parent that goes away to the States
Yep. Barrel
um,
children.
with barrel children, right? Yeah, and then you live with grandma and grandpa, so they become your parents, and your actual parents are strangers to you. Or life takes a sudden turn, and responsibilities of a whole new life just suddenly thrust upon you, and you just have to cope with that. You just
Hmm.
have to deal. There's no search for your feelings and then resolve yourself or anything like that. It's like you're here now, you have to deal. And so in that way, there are lots of parallels. The barrel children one being the most direct example, but it's even something as simple as growing up in one place and then having to transition to another part of the country to live there. Something as simple as that, and having to deal with all those changes on a very low level. It is
Hmm.
incredibly tough. And then the whole other aspect of not there's a whole piece of Femi in terms not just the identity of his father, but let's step back and look at it from his mother's perspective. Um, for this entity that is Femi, his core identity was created back when he was living in Lincolnshire. So the traditional values that ground her are not present in him. Femi himself is lacking the influence or knowledge of his father until later on in his life. Um, but at the same time, she has her box that she wants to fit him in, and he's going to be completely resistant to that, obviously, because her values are not his. and his identity is not what she wants it to be or what she thinks it should be. And that dynamic, I mean, nowadays you can look at it as simple as the difference between generations, because we can see that between our generation and our parents' generation, or even their parents' generation, and their system of values and the way they think life should be. How many people here, seeing as though most of you in the arts, would have had to have that conversation with their parents about this is not something I should be doing, this is not a way to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so even that idea differing values across generations. It's a bit more explicit in this situation because his identity was formed in complete absence of his mother, and he grew up in rural northern London, for Christ's sake. This is his mother whose entire identity is food, essentially. So that difference and trying to resolve that dynamic, in this case unsuccessfully until much later on, is something that we in the Caribbean are very, very familiar with because our generation, we're living through a period in time where we're constantly questioning um everything that our parents would have told us and their frame of reference for how we should live. We're pulling that up against what we're learning and what we're seeing from the larger world and the things that we're learning as we go along. And we're realizing those two things don't resolve. And trying to either marry those two things or at least allow them to live in harmony, um, is something I think is definitely relatable to us here in the Caribbean. And I
Yes.
ran now, but someone else have thoughts.
I don't know if somebody can repeat the question for me. I kind of lost
Oh,
the.
sure.
Yeah.
No problem. In what way is the film relevant to the Caribbean experience?
Oh, okay. And what ways is relevant to the Caribbean experience?
Yeah.
I would most definitely say the beaten. Because like any immigrant child will tell you, that is one thing you can't get away from. So other than that, if I honestly wish this film had a theatrical release in Trinidad, because I think it would have really done well, because it had so much things from the not just the culture with the singing, but with the clean with the broom. Like a lot of them be like, "Eh, like the broom, man." Like
Yeah,
all of them, yeah, boy. Like all those different things, the languages, and then, ooh, hmm. Oh, and the way that Femi has to grow up and navigate through London, because a lot of people in the Caribbean have, well, I would say the diaspora. So a lot of people who will have family and friends who live in these different countries, and there's the experience that they, well, the subtle racism or the overt racism that they
right.
experience within the different countries, but it also helps sorry, my mind kind of going blank. Is right. So it also depicts a life where people, somebody from Caribbean could go to these different countries and experience a life there, whereas somebody who may not personally have lived in the away could see how these people who have gone away struggled or how their life has been, etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
In relation to the question, basically it will deal with parenting style and the absenteeism of father figures in Caribbean homes,
Mm.
as well as the strain of generations. Because you look at it and you'll see where he didn't have that relationship with his mother, and then not having a father figure allowed him to join a gang. Whereas if you have, quote unquote, if you have a relevant father figure that you adapt to or you have a relationship with, you find yourself not
Mhm.
going down that road. Um, in relation to the parenting and a kind of a somewhat of a bullying, it may trigger some emotions in relation to bullying, because a lot of things that we don't speak about is where children who don't have their biological parents, or would have ended up in living with their grandparents or so forth. When it comes to certain activities in school where you have to say bring your mom or bring whoever, or who, or you're asking questions about your family tree, and you can't answer it, it's a bit of
Mm,
a like a stab,
yeah.
kind of thing that some students don't really deal with properly. So it has a lot of hidden. The movie itself has a lot of hidden stories in relation to underlying issues that existed in the Caribbean. But those, particularly the absenteeism of father figures, the parenting style. Um, well, the cookie broom is a must. You don't have to remember about how many times you
Yeah.
had your mommy pick up the cookie broom and it swing corners and you run on the stairs. It's had to have that.
Yeah.
So in addition to those things, the gang associations, the feeling of want of belonging, a sense of
Mm-hmm.
like some kind of belonging, and the education system, because simple as it is in Trinidad and Tobago, we have an education system where some teachers go out of their way and bring you back. There's one teacher I know particularly who go with a hockey stick. If you're outside a class when you're supposed to have a class, he grabbing you with a hockey stick. And you at least go into one class and you're going to pass that one class and you're going to have at least one subject. So um those are some of the underlying issues that would that would be highlighted that were highlighted in the movie, particularly in relation to the Caribbean diaspora.
One thing that I noticed as well with I felt like in many ways Femi's journey was kind of like a metaphor for our life here in the Caribbean. A journey of like identity and finding oneself. What is the Caribbean identity? Because there's a lot of questions that surround that. Who are you as a, because the Caribbean is just made up of so many different people from so many other parts of the world, and so many of us experience certain degrees of displacement from our countries of origin, so to speak, or in terms of descent, whether of African descent, East Indian descent, European descent. And so it's still, the Caribbean is very much characterized by a struggle for identity and finding oneself, which is a lot of what Femi experienced. So I thought that was my interpretation of how it kind of relates to the Caribbean.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Right, and just to wrap it up, what would you like to have seen more of in this film, or what would you have done differently? So you guys are professionals, so you may have the little tweaks there that you might want to change. What did you see in this film that you would have probably taken in a different direction?
Well, I don't mind starting off with, for me personally, I loved everything about the film. The one thing I would have liked to see a little bit more would have been the reasons as to why the mother gave him up to the foster. Well, I doubt she would have willingly give her up, but I guess it would be the conditions she would have been living in and so on. Like
Mm.
I don't think I remember the film addressing as to the reasons why for me end up in foster care. I I wasn't too sure if they addressed it, so that's my main issue. The addressing the reasons properly as to why he was in foster care in the first place. I know they left. Oh, was he born in? I wasn't too sure. He was born in Nigeria. Or he was born in London, or in England.
I don't think they say.
I
I don't
Well,
think.
don't think
they
so.
didn't really say, but from what they gathered when the auntie came, when they were talking about how the foster mom was taking care of him, she was talking about how this is the mother, this is the auntie, if you remember the auntie that visited, and the auntie that provided a place for her to work and stuff in London. So it was kind of strain of whether he was um born there versus if he was living there from for a period of time with her and then transferred over.
So, in other
Yeah.
words, they yada yada that piece in order to focus on him growing up.
Yeah,
Like,
like I don't mind the fact that they subtly say something about it, like without fully addressing it. I don't mind. The only issue is they could have at least put a little hint, a little hint within that says, okay, she was probably in a rough place, in a rough time. She could just been like the same confrontation they had where the older family, when they was
Mhm.
frustrated as to why he couldn't see the father and thing. She could have been like, oh, he sent her away, or oh, she was in a rough place. Like at least that would have been a hint to see as to why Femi ended up in the foster care system then. You know? So that was my only
I,
gripe with it. Other than that, yeah.
I think Femi himself didn't really know. And because it was so centered on Femi's perspective, they probably like deliberately kind of withheld that information.
I guess so, yeah.
I think it might have been an aesthetic choice, but of course, you as the hypothetical filmmaker, you could do what you want.
I don't think so.
Anybody else?
I'll be with on Ryan with that one in terms of because they were able to use a lot of flashback techniques and flash forward techniques. I think
Mm-hmm.
that they could have had room to just do a snippet when he was
Mm.
asking the question, a snippet to show or correlate what was going on. Because to be honest, it doesn't seem like Femi remembered anything from his earlier childhood. All he remembered is I'm living with this foster mom and she's taking good care of me. But anything prior to that with his biological mother or even knowing the auntie is a memory that's some way hidden under some tree, under some rock, under some
Under
anything.
the last tree.
Point.
I see what you did there.
But
But yeah, for
Nice.
me, everything else I was everything else I was cool with, because of the fact that the movie was already concise in a particular way, and adding too much of anything else would have kind of somewhat of delayed or tilted the atmosphere for the movie.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Stephanie. My initial thought would have been I would have liked to see more of his life before the mother showed up. Beyond just because they kind of gave you like the uh living life in Lincolnshire montage. It's the fastest way to get taken away and put into London. But I would have really liked to see. My first thought would have been seeing more of that life and the intricacies of that life, beyond just like a couple daily routine, couple iterations of the daily routine. But I think you're right in that if you try to put more, it's probably would have bloated a movie that didn't really need to be. That I probably didn't need to be bloated. And a lot of this stuff probably got yada yada simply because it is being told from Femi's perspective, and it would have been nice as Ryan, you pointed out as well, if he those some of those questions that Femi would have had were more explicitly addressed. Um, but the film doesn't suffer for it. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I must say I agree as well. I mean, I'm not exactly a film professional, but I don't think the film suffered at all for it. Only from reflection after you then start to think of it. But I think, at least for me, once you're engaged in viewing the film, there was enough to take away from the fact that you're probably wondering, well, where was that? There was enough content, enough substantial content for you to move past that thought that hey, maybe something is missing. There was enough in the film to carry away from that, and maybe only after, like, what would doing, you would probably think, well, I should have. I mean, hindsight is 2020. So as lack of a better way of saying it, I would give them a break because there were so many well blended things in there that you can't have it all. So take what you get and make it a quality product, and be that as it may.
It's great stuff.
You have anything else to add in? Any final say on the whole thing here?
No, no.
All right, so that's radio silence. That is my favorite cue. Right. So therefore, that leads us to the end of this film discussion of The Last Tree by Shola Amoo. It was hosted by the Gifted Creative Company with our illustrious guests, Saul Ramlal, Rhion Kendall, and Stephanie Smith. I would like to thank you all for being here, for engaging in this very insightful discussion. It was a pleasure being one of the hosts for this event. I really look forward to doing more of these things because we need this kind of, this kind of discussions, these kind of engagements to help bring awareness to the amazing art that is still out there. Pandemic be damned, we have a lot of culture, a lot of talent out there that needs to be highlighted. I want to thank you guys for coming. So, without
And
further
Thanks for having
ado,
us.
I just want to say
yeah.
to anyone who may get the chance to view that film, you should. You really should. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I wasn't expecting one thing, and I got that times 10. I was. It was great stuff. Great stuff. Alright, back to you, Wayne. I just had to have. I just had to say
Well,
that. I just had to say
well, I mean,
that.
well, I mean that even that is testament to the how the film affected you, yeah. Because it certainly did. I think from a Caribbean perspective, it's pretty much almost a must see, to give you that sense of reflection, because reflection is always good for you. I think definitely. I think that's the common thing here that it made you reflect on your experience because it was so close to our Caribbean upbringing. So definitely. So
Yeah,
again, yeah.
great stuff. Definitely great stuff. Great stuff.
Alright.
Thank
So
you for having us.
it was our pleasure.
This has been fun. Yeah.
Definitely.
This has been fun. Yeah.
Alright. We'll see y'all again at some point in the future. Stay
See you down
safe.
the road.
Stay in your house unless you have to work, and wear your mask.